Well, let's get back to our earlier story where we've been telling you about how the $1 billion IMF cash will hit the Bank of Ghana's accounts tomorrow, that's Thursday. This was after necessary documentation was finalized in Washington, D.C. earlier this week. Let's get on Skype and speak with the IMF country representative Albert Tuna Mama now for some thoughts. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the market, please.
Good afternoon.
Now, so all other things being equal, the money would be in the Bank of Ghana's account tomorrow. Is the disbursement going to be made in tranches to Ghana?
Thank you for having me. As you know, the executive board of the IMF approved a disbursement of around $1 billion under the rapid credit facility for Ghana. Yes, it's correct that the money should be paid in one tranche. This is a loan, a zero-free interest rate loan to Ghana. It's not a program, as I already mentioned, so there won't be conditionalities attached to this money. So the money should be available in the coming days, hopefully tomorrow.
All right, that's good news. Now, the IMF in its latest World Economic Outlook report is warning the sub-region is expected to go into a recession. What is the situation for Ghana?
In our current projections, we forecast growth to be around 1.5% this year in 2020. As you know, there is a lot of uncertainty, and that uncertainty is driven by non-economic factors, the length of the crisis, the duration, I should say, of the crisis. Okay. And how deep this crisis will affect various sectors of the economy. For a lot of countries on the continent, the situation is very much different than what we have here in Ghana. But at the moment, given what we are seeing, our forecast is to have growth to the tune of around 1.5% this year. We will obviously reassess that as we go. And I would also like to point out that this is very much a function of the success of the strategy to fight the virus in Ghana. So, let's see what happens. But I think that the measures that are currently in place, to the extent that they can slow down the virus and that people can stay at home as advised by the health authorities, this will go a long way in, succeeding in fighting the virus and going back to business as normal or as usual.
Right. Now, is the IMF still worried about the country's high debt distress position?
That has not changed, and for a lot of countries, this crisis will make things worse, unfortunately. The classification of Ghana as being at high risk of debt distress remains the same. I think at the moment, given the forecast that I just gave you, there is no expectation that will change. So I respond, yes, it's still very much the same classification.
All right. Now, we've also raised concerns about pressure on the Ghana cedi. Is this particular tranche or monies going to make any impact on the position of the cedi?
I mean, I would like to first say that, Ghana has a flexible exchange rate regime. So the exchange rate role is to be a shock absorber, especially in circumstances like this one where emerging markets and frontier economies face tremendous pressure in terms of capital outflows, portfolio outflows from non-resident investors or some other channels. Yes, it's important for central bank to have buffers to more or less reduce this volatility, but the expectation is not to have a peg or to have a fixed regime, a fixed exchange rate regime. So to answer your question, yes, the 1 billion will be additional buffers for the central bank, but as I said, the trade-off obviously is between using the buffers to remove to maintain some form of stability, but also letting the exchange rate play its role of shock absorber.
All right, now finally, before you go, there are also some concerns because many people believe that this current development is an indication that the country will once again return for a fund program. What's your take on that?
I mean, let me first say that this is an unprecedented crisis. You know, it compares and can even be worse than you know, the Great Depression of 1929 and the 30s. It's unprecedented. As an institution, we've received close to 90 requests for emergency financing. This is even more than during the global financial crisis in 2008. So the magnitude is just unparalleled, right? So of course, countries will be affected differently. And you know, no one can know at the moment what will happen. I think what is working in Ghana's favor now is that, given what we've seen and the forecast that we agreed to, Ghana is still expected to grow this year. And for that matter, there was no discussions whatsoever on a program with the IMF.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Albert Mamatuna. He's the IMF country representative in Ghana, sharing his thoughts.